Hello, everybody. Welcome to this week's edition of Rants on the Ruling Class. I am Todd, and this is my buddy Bill. Um, and kind of want to talk something that's kind of on my mind. I'm sure it's on the mind of a lot of citizens of this country. Um, as we continue to see things spin out of control and get crazier and crazier, I oftentimes ask myself, what is the benefit of being a citizen in this country? And I can't help but think that there's probably a lot of other Americans right now that are scratching their head going, really, like, what is the benefit? And, I think it's worthy of a conversation. Maybe we can work through some things for some people that maybe they got the same question as we go through this podcast. I hope just by visiting a little bit about it, it might open some people's eyes and they can start asking themselves and others questions about it too.
I think it's a good conversation to have, especially now.
Yeah, it is. So how do you want me to do this? You want me to tee up some questions to you, or how do you want to do this?
I've got some questions in my mind. Let's just let me throw them at you, okay? Because I think this is a
Okay.
good subject here. And just let me ask you, Todd. You kind of teed it up here. What's the benefit of being a citizen? So let me ask you this: do you have to be a citizen to get Medicaid benefits from your state welfare, Medicaid?
No,
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 you don't. Okay, that's not reserved for citizenship. Okay. Do you have to be a citizen to get a job in this country?
no.
No, even legally, you could
No,
be a permanent resident and have a job, right?
yep,
So you don't have to be a
exactly.
citizen for that. Okay. Do you have to be let's see, what else can we talk about? Do you have to be a citizen to vote?
Well, it's becoming, I think that's a good question at this point. I think it's becoming more and more likely that they're going to vote, and a lot of them in mass, I believe.
I think it's on purpose, right? I think
Yeah.
that the whole Obama Biden tactic is to get as many illegals here as they can so that they're telling them to vote. They're handing out, I saw on one of the morning Sunday shows as we're recording this morning, a flyer that's being handed out around the border to people, telling people to vote, telling illegals to vote. And I mean, it's obviously a big part of the plan. And it's tough to do because, they're handing out social security numbers to a lot of these illegals. So, and I listened to Attorney General Ken Paxton out of Texas talking about it. He was being interviewed and he was being asked, well, what can you do on the state level? And he goes, well, look, Martha, it's really not us. There's nothing we can do on the state level. If they have a social security number, that's all federal. We have no way because the voter ID laws, he said there's only 3 states that require you to show, or excuse me, only 3 states that require you to show proof of citizenship. But if you have a social security number, you can get a driver's license, you can get everything you need. And, like here in the state of Texas, that's what you need is a driver's license, some kind of ID, but it doesn't prove citizenship. So, it gets very complicated as you go across the country. So it's a valid concern, but, you know, this lends to, I don't want to go down that path quite yet because I'm really more focused on benefits of being a citizen because, one of the benefits I can think of, Todd, is you can serve on jury duty, right?
Oh, yeah, that's a great benefit of being
Yeah. Okay. So
a
there's your
citizen.
reward, Todd, for being
Yeah,
a citizen, is you can
yeah.
miss
Wow.
pay and work and everything else to serve on a jury. Now, I know that's a duty we all should take, but I mean, let's face it, most people do everything they can try to get out of it, right? What else? What else would be a benefit for being a citizen? You
Well,
pay taxes when you're a citizen. Do
yeah,
illegals pay taxes?
I don't know, but I know the left argues that they do all the time. So, um, well, I think as you were asking me these and thinking through this, I'm sitting here thinking they have blurred the line between citizen and non-citizen and caused another division, citizen and non-citizen, and that's what they do. They blur the line so much to where there's so much confusion, and I believe that citizens are starting to question themselves. What is the benefit of me being a citizen of this country? These people are pouring into this country. We're putting them up in hotels. We're buying them 3 square meals a day. We're giving them jobs. We're giving them Social Security. We're giving them benefits. They got free health care. They got all the benefits that I have to work for and pay for myself. And really, what is the point? They're using our tax dollars to do that. So I don't really see a benefit here. I would not trade places with them. Don't get me wrong. That's not my point. No way would I change places with those people. But my point is, they are creating such a confusion, blurred line between the two that people are starting to
Mhm.
question it. And I think that's by intent, it's on purpose. And the only way they can get done, and by say they, the ruling class, the globalists, get done with how to push their agenda through the entire world. We've said this 100 times. The United States is the last shining light on the hill for the entire world. If they could put this light out in the United States, the rest of the world will fall under globalism. So how do they do that? They blur anything and everything they can. And I know some of our members don't like the word, but they got to strip or denude the United States and Western society of everything that's important to them. And they do that by letting people vote in elections that don't have the same set of morals and ethics that I do, or the same upbringing, or the same beliefs. They believe in an entirely different society.
Or the same investment.
Yes, exactly. And what that does is that waters down our culture. It ruins it. It takes everything away. They take over there, come from there, bring over there to here, and try and turn here into there. And that happens all the time.
Todd, here, I think I agree with you 100%. I think it's a little bit more insidious than that, though, because it's psychological and it goes very, very deep. I don't think it's just a matter of people contemplating, well, is my citizenship worth anything? I think it's subconscious because when something has no value, how excited are you about it?
Not very at all. Pay
How
no
how
mind to it
hard
most
how
of the
hard
time.
do you fight to keep it? How
Don't
how much inconvenience will you go through to pay attention to it? You
we
see,
don't.
when you
Nobody.
said, when you talk about open borders denuding our sovereignty, and shout out to Dean, it's his favorite word. But you know, what you do is you water down the people's respect, admiration, pride, and patriotism for your country. That's what opens up the doors. That's what causes people to tune out and not pay attention. That's what allows all these globalists and Marxists and communists to come into our country and insert their personnel into our elected positions and start running things. So this is not a short-term thing, it's a long-term thing, but it's very important to understand. And that's why I believe so incredibly strongly, citizenship needs to be worth something. It needs to mean something. And if we don't get that part figured out, we can do a whole lot of things. We can shut the borders, but we're still going to be on a downward spiral.
I would agree, and I think also this ties into what we talked about on our last podcast. This is the what our universities are turning out in this country. The kids that are now uh, second generation of Ivy League schools that are now in positions of power in this country, and they've never been taught to even citizenship means nothing to them. It's
Hmm.
all for the greater good, the
Yep.
greater good.
And they
One
don't
of the
take
I
pride in
hate
it
that saying. I hate
for
that
sure.
saying. I hate that saying.
Yeah.
But that's what they believe. That's what they taught. That's what they're teaching our kids that are going to these universities and stuff. They're being indoctrinated with globalism ideologies. They probably don't even know it. But
Hmm.
really, what that does is that every time you make a deposit into that globalist thought structure, it makes it withdraws from your citizenship.
Hmm.
And globalism and democracy, or a democratic republic that we have here, can never coexist. They
Hmm.
will never coexist. Our Constitution, and I know you talked about this in your book, you cannot have globalism with our Constitution. It will never happen. So what do they got to do? They got to do every little thing. They just chip and pick and chip and pick and try and erode everything that they can. And I think citizenship is another topic that they've just completely tried to erase all
Hmm.
altogether to where it means nothing. And that's where we're at right now.
Yep. I agree. So, what I'd like to talk about is how should we make citizenship worth something?
Well, let me ask you a couple of questions now.
Okay.
I want to go back to one of your Substack articles that you wrote, and it's Stress Free Bill Uncommon Sense, I think is the name of your
Hmm.
Substack. Is that correct?
It is. Yes.
So, went back and we got into this article here a bit. If we want American citizens to be patriotic, love this country, informed, participating in all aspects of our culture to help save our culture of the place that we live in, that we're very fortunate to live in, uh, what would it look like to make citizenship value again to where that would happen? And you made 4 bullet points in your article, but your first bullet point is children of citizens should receive automatic citizenship, but just being born here does not bestow that. Why don't you expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, we're one of the only countries in the world. I think there's one other, I believe, but it's only one other that grants citizenship just because you're born on the territory, on the geography. And it may, especially in our current situation with all the illegal immigration, it makes absolutely zero sense to do that. So I think you have to eliminate that. Okay. And now, and I think you could even go deeper. Okay. If you're the offspring of two citizens, automatic citizenship. And I don't care whether you're born in the United States or born in Europe or where you're born, or if you're born in outer space, right? If both of your parents are citizens of the United States, you're a citizen of the United States too. I think that's fundamental. Now, on the other hand, what if only one of your parents is a citizen, Todd? Well, I don't want to deny citizenship to that person, but maybe there's some things, steps you got to jump through. Maybe you do have to go through a permanent residency. Okay, maybe you do need to spend some time here. Maybe there need to be some steps there, not onerous, not something that's going to prevent somebody from being a citizen, but enough that we can know that you share our society, our culture, our values.
Right.
Okay, so that you can appreciate what we have and what we are. And I don't think that's unreasonable. I don't think it's unreasonable at all. I mean, when you start looking at other countries like Switzerland, you can't even own property in Switzerland if you're not a Swiss citizen, and there's sure no birthright citizenship there. So, I mean, I think we need to give value. Maybe we don't need to go that far, but I think we do need to put value on having citizenship. And you're talking about some other things there. I don't know how long you want me to keep going on this, but I think it applies also when it comes to the categories of citizenship. As we were talking about being a permanent resident, I have nothing wrong or nothing against permanent residence. Okay, I think a permanent residency is a path to citizenship and should be, but I think attaining permanent residency ought to be um, hard enough that you have to really want to do it. It's not just, you don't just claim a political asylum and become a permanent resident. I think that
Right.
should be a separate category. I think, if you marry a United States citizen, okay, I'm fine, but you got to go through a permanent residency. And here's the other part of it, Todd. If you're going to be a permanent resident, somebody has to have financial responsibility for you. It used
Which
to
we,
be
right now, all taxpayers have that responsibility.
exactly. It used to be you couldn't enter this country on any kind of status, and especially permanent residency. I don't care if it's a fiance visa. You could not do that unless you had a US citizen sign a document saying that you would be financially responsible for that person. And if that person did end up taking public assistance, that you'd be on the hook to pay the government back for that public assistance. And I mean, and that was like a 10-year or 20-year commitment. I think it's changed over time, but I don't think it's even there anymore. It doesn't appear to be. But that's the type of what I'm saying. You have to want to be a citizen,
Well,
right?
that's
And you,
and that point that you make on the second point was about the permanent resident program, but you say it should be rare and carry strong requirements to
hmm
get citizenship out of that program.
hmm
And a lot of that, I think you touched on a little bit, but to me, a lot of it is you have to understand our culture, what is important to us, what it means to be a citizen of this country. You have to teach people. Um, I mean, I it's hard for me to even imagine like going to Switzerland and just moving over there and voting in their elections. I mean, I don't even know
yeah,
what's important to those people.
they
I
don't
don't.
let you
I
do
went to
that.
Mexico and voted.
Yeah.
Now I have a pretty good idea because it's pretty much worldwide. You're either voting for the globalist or you're voting against the globalist. So I think I could probably make a pretty good case in any country in the United or in the world today, based on what I've learned through your book and being part of this back here, is that it's all over the country. You're either voting for it or you're voting against it. And I think this is just another item on that list that goes with
hmm
any country. They try and strip all countries of their identity, of anything that makes you proud to be from Sweden or makes you proud to be from Mexico. They try and
hmm
strip all that from every country. And this country is no different. It's taken a little longer, but I think if our people don't wake up, it's going to be gone. We're going to be scratching our head going, what happened here? Really?
Yeah. And let's talk about the right to work. I think citizens and permanent residents ought to be allowed to work. You know, a permanent residency is what we used to call a green card, if that helps anybody out. It does give you a social security number. It does give you the ability to work in our country. You have to pay taxes, right? You have to pay social security, all of those types of things. But you know what? Here's the thing. Asylum, you should not have the right to work if you claim asylum. The only type of asylum we should be looking at is political asylum. Okay, if it's
Which
a legitimate.
so what's going on is not that
Oh no,
today.
they've totally blown that out of the water. It's economic, but
Yes.
true political asylum is still valuable, but you should not have the right to work here. And it should not be a path ever to permanent citizenship or citizenship. I mean, to permanent residency or citizenship. Okay. No, we need to cut those ties immediately. The other blatant abuse comes on work visas. Okay, I don't have anything against work visas if it is controlled. If we have a good Congress, it'll control it correctly. I don't want to, be losing American citizens' jobs to work visas that'll work for three-quarters of the amount of money. But H-1B visas, remember those? So,
Oh yeah.
but what I do think is with a work visa, you have to pay taxes, you have to pay Social Security, but you are not eligible for any kind of government benefits. No Medicaid, no Medicare. If the company you're working for wants to pay your health care, fine. But you are not available to any kind of public assistance on health care. You are not eligible for any of the other benefits, housing benefits. You're not eligible for anything. And you are not eligible for a path to citizenship on a work visa, and work visas should be restricted and limited. And I do believe the federal government ought to have the ability to make the very rare exception to offer someone citizenship. There's going to be situations where we want people to defect into the country, a scientist or something like that, and the only way he'll feel good about it or protected is if he has U.S. citizenship. Okay, yeah, but those are rare. Those are very rare exceptions, and that can
Well, I
be
think
legislated to be rare too.
you made another point in that article that I want to touch on a little bit, talking about the guest worker visas. But you said guest worker visas should never, in italics, offer a pathway to citizenship, which you talked a little bit about, and should be tariffed to remove the financial incentive for replacing an American worker. What do you mean by should be tariffed?
Well, here's the thing. Let's say you bring in an American worker. Let's say you're Google, for example. I know Google's kind of evil, but let's just say you're a big company like a Google and you have a job. You've been trying to fill it for some indefinite period of time, 6 months, something, and you cannot fill it. And you can document. We've been finding we can't find anybody qualified. We can document this. Okay. You can hire a worker visa, bring somebody in to fill that job, and there's no tariff. But on the other hand, if you can't document that and you bring somebody in on a work visa, you're going to pay a tariff of 50% of their salary to the United States government. So in
Think
other
that would
words,
stop this?
yeah,
Like
absolutely.
what's their
Wipe out the
advantage?
financial advantage for these companies replacing American citizens in jobs with H-1B visas. And I mean, why not do that?
I like it.
Yeah,
It's a
give me
good,
a reason not to do that.
it's a big bold thought. I like it. Big bold idea.
Yeah, and I think
Um,
there's a lot of things we can do like that, Todd. I think we're only scratching the surface, but go ahead. I interrupted
you
you.
touched on your last one. The privileges of citizenship should never be given to non-citizens, including voting, driving. You and I are kind of. I know your article says
Eh,
driving, but it's kind of yeah. Like that's the least of our problems, really, to be honest with you. And government-sponsored financial aid, which you
right,
talked about, they should not be able to get any of those benefits,
right. And the driving thing more has to do with voting and driver's licenses. But
right?
if you had here's what something I want to suggest there. And actually this comes from Robert F. Kennedy. And I think it's a great idea. I don't know if anybody's renewed a passport lately or applied for a passport, but you don't have two options on it. Well, three, because you can get both. But you can get a passport or you can get a citizenship card, a passport card, right? It's a card like a credit card you would hold in your wallet. And they're very security conscious, just like $100 bill. You've got strips in there and stuff like that. It's very, very difficult to counterfeit. Okay. Unlike a driver's license, for example.
Right.
But right now, if you want to buy a Visa, I think it's probably $50, $75, whatever it is these days. A passport's what I'm trying to say. If you want to get a U.S. passport, but the card is only like $25. And I don't think the card's accepted every place in the world, but neighboring countries like Mexico and Canada and stuff like that, they accept it and it's easy. It's proof of citizenship. Okay. Here's the thing. RFK says, why not give every citizen, every documented citizen, forget the $25. Let's eliminate the argument about not being able to afford it. Let's just give every citizen a citizenship card. And then
Oh, you
let's
mean and
require,
identify them in our own country?
yeah. And so that
Oh,
way, when you're voting, you can show that card. And if you don't have it, you can't vote. So now, if that was the case, I would have no problem handing a driver's license to someone with a work visa. Okay, because it shows they've been through driving school a little bit. They probably have insurance and all those types of things.
right.
And that's why I think that makes so much sense, because it solves so many different problems all in one. So I'd be all in favor of that. That's one of RFK's good ideas.
That is a good idea. So I wonder how we're going to stop illegal people that are in this country from voting in our elections. And we've kind of started this theme of big, bold ideas.
Mhm.
And you and I discussed this a little bit before we talked about it, but I kind of want you to touch on it and go into it a little more. And that is, if you had $100 million at your disposal, how would you go about ensuring or getting us down the path towards illegals not voting in our elections?
Yeah, it would take that. That's the thing, right? It would take somewhere between 50 and $100 million, but those types of monies are raised all the time in electoral campaigns, right? So
Right.
election campaigns. But here, let me set the stage first, because I know there's a lot of concern out there about illegals voting in mass and stealing the election. And there are a lot of people that think that absolutely is the Democrat plan. And I know it is a huge part of it. That's the whole reason that, the Biden administration, the Obama Biden administration has been, just stockpiling all these, just, opening the doors for all these illegals to come in. There's no question about it. I was watching a Sunday morning news show this morning, I think I said earlier, where they're passing out pamphlets at the border, telling illegals, you got to vote for Obama, go get registered, go vote. I mean, it's insane, right? So, but there is a way, Todd, there's a way to just absolutely undercut that Democrat strategy. There is a way to just really, I don't know if you could negate 100% of the challenge or the illegal voting, but let me ask you this. If you could take away 75% of that threat, can you imagine any better way to spend campaign funds, to spend $100 million of campaign funds?
No, you take away 75% of it, and that's enough, I
Okay.
think.
What's one of the biggest fears of an illegal alien coming into this country?
Getting deported.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? Okay. So here's all you need to do. I mean, the simplicity of this is what I think the beauty of it is. Starting 30 days before early voting in the November election, you make massive ad buys. You pick the 10 to 12 states that are most important in this election here. That would include, 5 swing states plus some others that are heavily involved with immigration or vulnerable. And what you do starting 30 days ahead is you run massive radio and television ads on all the Spanish speaking radio stations, all the Spanish speaking television stations. And you tell people that even if you somehow end up with a social security number, if you're not a US citizen, it is illegal to vote in a US election, and you will be caught and you will be deported. If anybody's telling you different, they are lying to you and they are using you. Do not let yourself be manipulated. Do not let yourself be caught. If you're not a citizen, do not vote.
Hmm.
And you start running that over and over and over and over, and all of a sudden that fear turns into gossip, and all of a sudden you have all of these illegals talking to each other. So, well, wait a minute, what about what I heard? And what, and now you have all this confusion. Now you have all these people scared to death because they're hearing it over and over. And then they see it could be a PSA, a public service announcement. It doesn't have to be run by the government. It could be run by, our own NGO or a PAC or something like that, right? So
Right.
you just start flooding the airwaves with these ads. And even if they have a coyote out there, a cartel guy, telling them, no, 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 you got to go vote. Excuse the accent.
Yeah.
and the poor immigrant here is going, well, oh, okay, yeah, I did that. I voted. How are they going to know? I mean, it would be easy. It would be easy for the immigrants to get scared and just not do it. And that, I think you could eliminate 75% of the illegal immigrant vote right there. I think you totally undercut what I think is probably the number one Democrat strategy to cheat in this election.
I agree. So that's a big, bold idea. For sure.
So
when we
again, if
look
you know
at,
anybody out there, if you know anybody out there runs in those circles,
yeah,
forward this podcast to them, right? Let us talk to them.
yeah, Bill, that's good conversation. I hope by, listening to Bill and I talk about this, it at least triggers some thoughts and maybe some discussion with you and your friends or people that you discuss this stuff with. But I think it's worthy of looking at, and I think it's worthy of acknowledging that I'm not the only one that's questioning this. There's probably millions of Americans that have the same feelings, the same thoughts that I'm having. If you love this country, you got to be questioning what's going on. What's the advantage of being an American citizen right now? And that's a legit question. But hopefully this helps you work through it a little bit. And you know what? Things are crazy all the time, get crazier, and I think they're going to get crazier even yet because I think they're backed into a corner that they never saw themselves getting backed into,
Oh yeah.
especially now with Joe. They bashed him publicly all over the mainstream media, so they can't leave him in there now because then they're going to have to walk back all their conversation about how bad he is. So I mean, they're pinned, bad right now. So just remember, pass this around, have a plan, talk to your neighbors, friends, get a plan together, look out for each other, and remember that it's always a great day to be an American. And globalism, communism, whatever you want to call it, it still sucks. We'll catch you guys on the next one. Thanks.